Welcome back. I certainly hope that you had fun with those two practice queries. Before we get started talking about ordering your result set, let's review those practice queries. The first one asked you to write a query that used the person.address table and returned the address line 1, address line 2, state, province ID, and postal code, but only for those people who live in the city of Seattle. Your query might vary a bit, but here's what I have. Select address line 1, address line 2, state, province ID, and postal code from person.address where city equals Seattle. I threw you a bit of a curveball. In the video, the only thing that I did with my predicate here was compare it to numbers where they were greater than or equal to. But in this query, you needed to use a character string. So if you got the query written correctly, then you know that characters are always surrounded by quote marks, like this, right here. And that in T-SQL, we always use single quotes, not ever a double quote. Good job. When we run that query, we get back 141 rows compared to the 19,000 some odd rows in the table as a whole. So how many people live in your hometown? Why don't you try practicing, write that query, change it a little bit, and find out. Now for the challenge. You were supposed to write a query that returned the name, country region code, sales YTD, and sales last year from the sales territory table, but only for those territories where sales year to date was greater than 5 million. And you were supposed to create aliases for the column names. Well, here's how mine looks. Select name, country region code as country, sales YTD as year to date sales, sales last year as last year sales from sales.territory, where sales year to date greater than 5 million. So if I execute this, I get back the 5 rows that I mentioned to you. So first of all, think about this. You wrote that query entirely on your own, without any help from me other than giving you the requirements. Second, the aliases. Of course, yours might look very different than mine, but you have noticed the names of the columns in your return set are what your aliases are. But also notice that it didn't change the underlying table. Let's take a look at that. Let's look at the table, sales.sales territory. And if I look at the columns, it didn't change them under the table, only in your result set. Now, if you want to ratchet the complexity up one level, change your query to ask for territories that are less than 5 million and are in the US. I'm sure you can figure out how to change the greater sign to a lesser sign. That's easy. And so that's what if I execute it that way, it returns a different 5 records, but it doesn't return 5 records, but they're a different set of records. It's the and in the country of US. So let's change that. So I'm going to type and country region code equals quote US quote, and that with a semicolon. Now notice we have to use the original column name, not the alias. Later on in the series we'll talk about why that's true, but for now just know that it is true. Let's execute that, and we get a different set. We get those that are less than 5 million and are in the US. my predicate now becomes this entire thing. And it has to meet both conditions. Has to be less than 5 million, and country region code has to equal US. You know, you should be proud of yourself. You've learned a lot. One thing that's helpful as you go through this series is to encourage yourself often by looking back and seeing how far you've come and how much you've learned. So good job. I'll see you in the next video where we'll talk about the order by clause of the select statement.